Greetings, my fellow freedom lovers and sovereign thinkers. Thank you for tuning to LL3 Podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful land of enchantment, also known as New Mexico. And today's date is Monday, March 16th, 2020. Yeah, it's beautiful skies within the central New Mexico area. Good vibes, even though the anxiety of COVID-19 still affecting all of us. But always got a question on this Kio Bono who benefits. Always got to look at all sides of the matter. However, technology could be affected by it as well. 5G, for an example. Every time there's some technology, a virus comes around. If you just study little patterns of history. Yeah, I post stuff like that on my Facebook page and Twitter accounts. You should check it out. Pretty cool stuff. And always observe responsibly, of course. So, I'll be talking about a few things pertaining to that matter. But first, this one came out from the freethoughtproject.com. It's called 1,000 Michigan Children to Receive $80 million for Being Sexually Abused in State Institutions. It's by Matt Agarist. A massive lawsuit represented over 1,000 children who were held and sexually abused in the Michigan correction system was recently settled as state officials agreed to pay $80 million to the victims. The lawsuit began in 2013 and has been an uphill battle for the plaintiffs as the state fought them every step of the way. The massive payout comes after hundreds of children came forward with claims that they were sexually assaulted and harassed by corrections officers, as well as incarcerated adults while in the state's care in detention centers across the state. Despite the size of the settlement, Michigan Department of Corrections Director and spokesperson for the current Attorney General, cited the cost of litigations as a reason for settling, not guilt. I wonder why. We got to look at the length of time that we've been dealing with this and the amount of resources that, frankly, will be spent continuing to draw this out, Heidi Washington, the MDOC director, said during the call. Though a statement read by her spokesperson, Attorney General Donna Nizell, said that although her office had vigorously defended against this lawsuit and has exhausted every single legal argument over the years, in the end it was clear that continuing to engage to protracted litigation was not in the best interest of the people in the state. In response to the state's inability to believe the hundreds of alleged victims, the attorney who filed the lawsuit, Deborah LaBelle, said the state took dozens of depositions of youth who are under oath, told consistent and compelling reports of sexual assaults in addition to many, many more who asked for help they never received, and most of whose reports of rape were never even investigated. The only way to assert the defendants could not collaborate is to take the unsupported position that scores of young people were lying about the sexual assaults that happened to them in Michigan's prisons when they were placed without supervision in cells, units with adults, when they were 15, 16, and 17 years old, to simply deny the credible and consistent reports of these young sexual abuse victims is to re-traumatize them. Though she stopped short of admitting guilt, Nassau did concede that the state has made significant changes since 2013 during the former Attorney General Bill Shedd's term in order to combat child sex abuse. I believe prisoners are entitled to be treated with respect and basic human dignity, Nassau said, referring to Heidi Washington, who became prison director after the lawsuit was filed. I know MDOC has made significant strides under the leadership of Director Washington, and that of the past 7 years of litigations do not reflect the desires of her administration or the current reality inside Michigan's prison system. I would agree that during the trajectory of this case, the department has responded to the allegations and approved conditions, said LaBelle. According to the Associated Press, LaBelle has formed a committee to determine how the money will be paid out to the victims, which is a pool of around 1,000 current and former incarcerated children. She explained that the children who received the worst abuse, like rape, will receive more of the settlement. We've heard from hundreds, so we know it was widespread, and there's a great deal of harm, LaBelle said. Youth who were subjected to penetrative assaults qualify for the most. Those who were subjected to sexual harassment, touching, will receive less because the severity of the injuries was different. Also, teens who were kept in solitary confinement, which has recently been classified as torture that can make children more dangerous, are eligible to receive part of the settlement as well. Although the department was required to incarcerate children convicted of certain crimes under Michigan law, what they didn't have to do is subject children to sexual assaults by both staff and incarcerated adults, LaBelle said. What they didn't have to do is put children in solitary confinement for months on end. So I think that also the fact that they paid $80 million in damages means that they have to recognize the kind of harm they did. According to the appeal, in addition to monetary relief, the settlement requires the Department of Corrections to take steps to improve safety for children in adult facilities. According to the packet, explaining the settlement to plaintiffs provided through the appeal by LaBelle, those steps include the creation of a youthful offender policy directive to improve conditions for any youthful offender in the custody of the MDOC, enhance a culture of humane treatment, eliminate the risk that a youth will be subject to sexual abuse by staff or adult prisoners, and work toward eliminating the use of segregation or isolation of youth. Okay, other requirements will include review the use of force against incarcerated children, reporting and tracking of complaints of sexual abuse, harassment and retaliation, and elimination of the previous requirement that incarcerated children file a grievance or exhaust administrative remedies before able to file complaints under the Prison Rape Elimination Act. Despite the push to reform Michigan's problem of child rape in prison, LaBelle says little is being done. I've heard better language from them, but I'm not sure that we have a kind of commitment yet to address issues of criminal justice and youth justice with this administration, LaBelle said. Interesting there. It's very disturbing, of course. And it's funny when it says here, eliminate the risk that a youth would be subject to sexual abuse by a staff or adult prisoners. Okay, on there. And work toward eliminating the use of segregation or isolation of youth. So that's he's got a question there in my perspective. Sometimes I may have to comprehend a little bit better. However, this is typical cruel and unusual punishment when it comes down to it. And of course, the Michigan Constitution has that in there as well. And so, it's just times when you got folks out there, even prosecuting attorneys, even under the juvenile justice system, they're like vampires as well. I'm not saying all, but a great amount of them are just want those brownie points, baby. Yes, they do. And they treat them like numbers, and look what happens. All backfires. And the people from Michigan should call these people out because your tax dollars are going down the drain. Wow. So, well, it's good for them, for those folks who are the victims. I won't deny that at all. But one of those areas they treat you like a numbers game, not a human being. Let's see how their actions speak, louder than their rhetoric. This one here was on naturalnews.com, Mike Adams, and he's saying Ron Paul said the coronavirus is a hoax, and here's why he's horribly dangerously wrong. In piece entitled The Coronavirus Hoax, which first appeared at the ronpaulinstitute.org website, American patriot and hero, former congressman, argues that the entire reaction to the coronavirus is a grand hoax. It's all scripted, he explains, to bring authoritarian government without any real justification. And he implies the virus itself is likely more dangerous than the seasonal flu. No more dangerous than the seasonal flu. And the columns below here, it says here, while Ron Paul is a living legend and one of the most moral and courageous individuals to have ever walked in the halls of the U.S. Congress, we would be negligent in our own duties if we did not point out how horribly wrong Ron Paul's conclusions have become on this issue. We do not challenge Ron Paul's morality or honesty or dedication to humanity, but we do challenge his arguments and bad conclusions. It's okay to tolerate viewpoints, my friends, and nothing wrong with that. I'm a Ron Paul supporter, okay? When he ran for president, doesn't mean I want to agree with him on everything. However, we'll just keep on going here. Flatly stated, Ron Paul is horribly, dangerously wrong about the coronavirus. His article is so misguided. My first reaction was that someone must have hacked his website. So I waited a few hours to even write this response. Alice, his original piece, is still posted, which means he indeed wrote it. That's far more disturbing than the idea of the Ron Paul Institute website being hacked, by the way. To understand why, we take a look at these two graphics. First is a map of the coronavirus cases spreading across the U.S. at an exceptionally accelerated rate. And it shows you here from Pandemic News Animation and New York Times map. It tells you from the 5th to the 16th how the outbreak is being enhanced. Like, more cases are being aware. And to be very frank, how accurate are these numbers? So, but Mike Adams, I always got to give Mike Adams credit in these areas because he's a scientist and he does know about how to do math in these areas. And I always have to give him his merits for those areas. But I will post all this on my speaker page. You can check it out yourselves. But very intriguing indeed. And it says here, and secondly, take a look at this parabolic rise in the number of cases, which has been confirmed in the United States. And this is from linear logarithmic, and it has been going up. It's from February 15th. It was like maybe 0 cases, and it started to go up a little bit until now it's like a little under 4,000 cases. So notice the shape of this curve. It's not going to flatten anytime soon unless President Trump invokes some aggressive social distancing measures. With the world case fatality rate selling in and around 5.7%, the United States of America is now on track to see millions of infections and deaths if we don't change course. 5.7% case fatality rate is 57% more deadly than the seasonal flu. Yet Ron Paul offers the same tired, obsolete argument of Rush Limbaugh and others who are trying to downplay all by this claiming it's essentially just a flu. There are 7,000 people dead around the world right now who might beg to differ if they weren't already dead. Because of the multi-week lag time of deaths and versus new infections, in another 2 weeks, the number of dead around the world will be tens of thousands. And by this summer, if nothing more is done to aggressively stop the spread of the coronavirus in the USA, there will be hundreds of thousands dead in the United States alone. Ron Paul is a former congressman who correctly warned us about the dangers of compounding national debt interest and why the Federal Reserve would eventually lead us to bankruptcy and collapse. Yet today, Paul fails to see the dangers of compounded exceptional viral infection and skyrocketing death rates that occur once the hospital gets overrun. Ron Paul was right about the Fed and fiat currency, and given the way things are going right now, we may both fight a financial collapse and a public health collapse at the same time. Can we finally audit the Fed then? Mr. Black Swan meets Mrs. Black Swan. I've run the projected models using the best numbers available from the 181,000 infections which have already been tracked. We know that 15 to 20% of those who are infected require hospitalization. If one half of the population gets infected, about 165 million people, that equates to many as 33 million people required extended hospital treatments lasting several weeks. But of course, there aren't even 1 million hospital beds available in the entire country, and one of the most that are already full. So if we do nothing, the hospitals are quickly overrun by serious and critical patients. Once the hospitals are no longer capable of responding, the case fatality rate skyrockets to something close to 10 to 15% instead of just 2 or even 5.7%. If you do nothing in America, there is no question we will see literally millions of deaths this year, with the numbers really accelerating through June and July. There will be no elections in November under this scenario, and the Trump administration will be finished, with the coronavirus denying conservatives discredited for a generation, much like the post-Nixon era, where the word conservative was considered almost a pejorative. In his article below, Ron Paul imagines that people who aren't under quarantine will go to the beaches to get sunshine and fresh air, preventing the spread of the virus. That's some very ambitious wishful thinking. Just to get to the beach, people will share public transportation vessels where the virus will spread through the enclosed, shared air, just like we saw on the Diamond Princess. And if everybody heads to the beaches, then the beaches will be very crowded through which the coronavirus spreads. To answer to all this is only achieved through social isolation, not crowds at the beach or employees in office buildings. Even worse, as a pandemic sweeps across America, because considered toward everybody was no big deal, the majority of deaths will occur among older people who tend to vote conservative. This is exactly how a walking Alzheimer's patient named Joe Biden wins the November election, via the deaths of millions of Trump supporters who failed to take precautions because Ron Paul, Rush Limbaugh, and Dr. Drew told him this is no worse than the flu. In other words, the kinds of dangerous denialism being demonstrated by Ron Paul right now is exactly what might end up putting Hillary Clinton in the White House next January if she runs as Biden's VP. And pro-Trump conservatives are playing right into the hands of the globalists. Ron Paul and other conservatives who are still pushing a form of hard denialism need to wake up and realize the dire nature of the catastrophe they are shaping and promoting. For it we're not careful, they will be actively working to destroy Trump and put a left-wing lunatic in the White House, all in the name of stopping tyranny and protecting liberty. How's that liberty going to look after millions of Trump supporters are dead and a zombie named Biden wins the November election? Here is the Ron Paul's original article, which is a chock full of misinformation and, in my opinion, horribly sloppy thinking that arrives at precisely the wrong conclusions. And I'm not questioning the man, I'm questioning his conclusions, and that's fair. And it's from the Ron Paul Weekly column. You can read it right down here. It says here, government loses crisis because when the people are fearful, they are more willing to give up their freedoms for promises that the government will take care of them. Well, that's a good point. After 9/11, for example, Americans accepted near total destruction of their civil liberties in the Patriot Act's hollow promises of security. And he's right on that. It's ironic to see the Democrats who tried to impeach President Trump last month for abuse of power, demanding that the administration grab more power and authority in the name of fighting a virus that thus far has killed less than 100 Americans. Declaring a pandemic emergency on Friday, President Trump now claims the power to quarantine individuals suspected of being infected by the virus as political rights, stop and seize any plane, train, or automobile to stymie the spread of contagious disease. He can even call out the military to cordon off a U.S. city or state. State and local authorities love panic as well. The mayor of Champaign, Illinois, signed an executive order declaring the power to ban the sale of guns and alcohol and cut off gas, water, or electricity to any citizen. And what happened was they actually recanted that later, folks. He's right, because I have notice about that from Guns and Gadgets. You can look that up. And it has been recalled, you can say. The governor of Ohio has just essentially closed his entire state. So his whole state's entirely closed. So the chief fearmonger of the Trump administration is, without the doubt, Anthony Fauci, head of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases at the National Health Institute. Fauci is all over the media, serving up outright falsehoods to stir up even more panic. He testified to Congress that the death rate for the coronavirus is 10 times that of the seasonal flu, a claim without any scientific basis. On Face the Nation, Fauci did his best to further damage an already tanky economy by saying, right now, person myself, I wouldn't go to a restaurant. He has pushed for closing the entire country down for 14 days. Over what? A virus that has thus far killed just over 5,000 worldwide and less than 100 in the United States. By contrast, tuberculosis, an old disease, not much discussed these days, killed nearly 1.6 million people in 2017. Whereas a panic over this? If anything, what people like Fauci and other fearmongers are demanding will likely make the disease worse. The martial law they dream about will leave people hunkered down inside their homes instead of going outdoors or to the beach where the sunshine is fresh air and help boost immunity. The panic produced by these fearmongers is likely help spread the disease as massive crowd rushes into Walmart and Costco for that last roll of toilet paper. The madness over the coronavirus is not limited to politicians and the medical community. The head of the Neoconservative Atlantic Council wrote in an editorial this week, urging NATO to pass an Article 5 declaration of war against COVID-19 virus. So that's a little bit off the wall there too. Are they going to send in tanks and drones to wipe out these microscopic enemies? People should ask themselves whether the coronavirus pandemic could be a big hoax, with the actual danger of the disease massively exaggerated by those who seek to profit financially or politically from ensuing panic. This is not to say that the disease is harmless. Without question, people will die from coronavirus. Those vulnerable categories should be taking precautions to limit the risk of exposure. But we've seen this movie before. Government overhypes as a threat, as an excuse, grab more freedoms when the threat is over. However, they never give us our freedom back. It's interesting, he got like two folks here, Mike Adams and Ron Paul. They have two different scenarios. And there's some flaws. I have to agree with Mike on this. There are some flaws to this matter on his article. And you always got to watch out for a handful of people in governments as well who like to take advantage of this opportunity, like a practice drill. And a lot of these stuff's been happening little by little. Now it's getting a little bit too obvious. Do I say, like I said before, can I consider COVID-19 a bioweapon? Yes, I have. I hope I'm wrong. Okay? I'm not the only one saying this. So yeah, there is a lot of interesting things about it. But like I told everyone over here, it's always good to be vigilant. I would not recommend in a lot of crowded places either. But when you have the state do it, it could be pretty leery. Looks like a lot of stores themselves could make these recommendations. They could go follow these guidelines voluntarily. I can agree with that. But one of the areas we cannot do is make it into a police state mockery. So like I said with this, it's very interesting because sorry about that. Just a little bit be at ease here. A little bit tired. I think West Virginia still has some areas. So I'm a little bit tired, but forgive me there. But hey, like I said, sometimes these numbers may not be as accurate either. Okay, because they may have like a few cases, but how accurate is it? We don't know for sure. So like I tell everybody, we can't live in fear. We gotta be vigilant. Always gotta take your health. When it comes to health, you gotta be strong and be active, including natural remedies as well. So, but this one here, speaking of drastic actions, Maryland governor's ordered drastic actions. This came from the Organic Prepper. Daisy Luther says here, Maryland Governor Larry Hogan announced a series of dramatic executive orders today to prevent the spread of the coronavirus. These actions are to be enforced by police and the National Guard. According to WBAL TV, he ordered the following social distancing measures: shut down all bars, restaurants, gyms, and movie theaters, effectively starting at 5 p.m. Monday. Drive-through and carry-out services will be allowed to continue. Following CDC guidelines, setting of 50 or more individuals will be prohibited across the state, including social and recreational events and religious sports gatherings. So, your right to peacefully assemble can be denied. So it says here, these measures will be strongly enforced. Annie Riddell, First Alert reports. Hogan says state troopers and National Guardsmen will enforce orders, saying, we're not playing around anymore. Ouch. How manly. Emergency orders will carry the full force of the law, Hogan reiterated. So what, you gotta throw these people in prison for 5, 6, 10 years? We never faced anything like this before, said Hogan. He continued, signing drastic actions after being taken right now. He warned Marylanders the order may seem scary and may sound extreme, is absolutely necessary. So habeas corpus may be out the window. I recommend folks out there reading the Maryland Declaration of Rights. So it says here they'll also increase medical resources and provide financial relief. As well, any hospitals that have been closed will be reopened to increase the capacity in the state by 6,000 beds. They will also allow doctors and nurses with out-of-state licenses to practice in Maryland. For those who may be financially struggling, the following orders will be put in place. Essential orders such as grocery stores, banks, and gas stations will remain open. The executive order prohibits utilities such as electricity, gas, water, sewage, cable, internet, and phone lines to be cut off, nor incur late fees. Evictions have been prohibited, so squatters are legit. Maryland State Superintendent of Schools Karen Salmon has applied for a federal waiver to provide 3 meals a day plus a snack to those who need it. Statewide, 138 centers already up and operating. That's from the visit mdsummermeals.org. To some degree, this answers the question about whether or not utilities will remain working. It appears the government will try to keep these things like power, water, internet running as normally as possible for as long as possible. How long would these measures last? According to Hogan, it is impossible to know how long this threat will continue. This shows you how fast things can change. These announcements were made at 11 o'clock Monday morning. This takes effect this afternoon at 5 p.m. Our situation is extremely fluid, and you can expect things to change rapidly. For more advice on preparing for quarantines, there's a link there. Once the lockdown begins occurring, expect them to quickly spread across the country. If you haven't purchased everything you need, go here for advice on what to buy. when the things you're run out of stock. You need to be where you attend to ride things out, and you need to have what you want to have. Time is quickly running out. It hasn't already. Today it's Maryland. By the end of the week, it could be the entire country. So it could be more of a lockdown. Wow. So it looks like Ohio's closed its state, and now Maryland is using drastic orders. So, and sometimes it may not be as healthy for the people themselves. And this is why we always gotta look at things, read between the lines. And don't get me wrong, I can see this thing simmer itself, okay? However, these areas, you have to be very vigilant, folks, in the Commonwealth of Maryland and beyond. All right, one more thing here. It's from the Epoch Times. It's entitled, How to Keep the Greater Good in Mind During the Coronavirus Outbreak. This is by Jill Sudi. I just learned that my son's college, the University of Washington, would be canceling all in-person classes and finals to help contain the spread of the coronavirus. One confirmed on-campus case prompt the university's response. Though the university will occur in high costs, they have to deep clean the whole campus. For example, I, for one, am truly grateful for the swift action in putting students first. It is one of many ways I feel cared for in the midst of this crisis, and one of many caring acts that I expect to see in the weeks ahead. While I expect more cooperation and compassion in the face of an epidemic. That's a question. Because contrary to a popular belief, cries often tend to bring out the best in people. A report that looked at how people responded during September 11, 2001 Twin Tower attacks showed that people bent over backwards to help others escape, sometimes at great personal risk to themselves. Other reports on the aftermath of natural disasters show how strangers will stick out their necks to help for each other to help. While it's true that sometimes disasters can lead to a minority of people taking advantage of the situation, for example, stealing people's possessions when they have to leave their house, this is not a common response, much as it grabs headlines. Instead, when we face a common enemy like an epidemic, we are more likely to pull together for the benefit of everyone. Notice how many young and healthy people are taking seriously the need to wash their hands frequently, cover their mouths when they cough, stay home when sick, or wear a mask in public. Sure, no one wants to get sick, but at the same time, no one wants to be responsible for making others sick. In fact, research shows that protecting others is a huge motivator for doing the right thing. For an example, one study looked at what prompt hand-washing behavior in hospital doctors and nurses. Researchers found that signs saying hand hygiene prevents patients from catching diseases were more effective at prompting hand washing than signs of simply saying hand hygiene prevents you from catching diseases. In other words, appealing to the healthcare workers' altruistic care for their patients was more effective than appealing to their self-interest. In fact, it may simply be human nature to be kind and helpful when others need us. In one recent study, children only 4 to 5 years old who were told that resisting the treat would benefit another child were better able to delay gratification than children to their actions would only affect themselves. Similarly, babies as young as 19 months were willing to give food away to someone who appeared to need it, even when hungry themselves. Of course, not everyone acts altruistically in these situations. So what makes it more likely the will and how we can use that our advantage? There are 4 ways we can encourage more people. We can encourage more altruism fighting the virus. 1. Look to the heroes. There will always be heroic efforts in disaster. People who sacrifice themselves for the good of others. Think of the healthcare workers who are treating people infected with the virus at great personal risk, or those infected with the virus who voluntarily isolate themselves for weeks to protect the public. When we hear stories of these people, we feel it's called moral elevation, a warm feeling that inspire us, fueling optimism and a desire to act altruistically ourselves. While the temptation might be focused on fear and everything going wrong, we can redirect our attention to those who are doing the right thing, which will lead us to better citizens ourselves. 2. Stay calm and focused. It is easy to be lost in fear when disaster strikes. However, it doesn't help anyone to stir up panic about the situation because we don't think as clearly when we are in emergency mode. You can see how this is played out already as people have been stockpiling masks and creating shortage that could affect the people who truly need them. Those who are sick and need masks to avoid spreading the disease to the rest of us. How can we stay calmer and make wiser choices? One way is to use whatever tool you have at your disposal for keeping a cool head, like practicing mindfulness, which has been shown to both lessen emotional reactivity and help us make better decisions. We might take a walk in the park or nearby woods and let nature soothe us. Or we could talk to a friend, a calm friend, that is, who can help us reduce our anxiety. Of course, of normal ways of connecting socially, like singing together at a concert or going to large parties, may have to change. But whatever we can do to maintain an air of calm and to spread it those around us, the better. After all, the emotions tend to be contagious in our social circles, and we should do our best to keep fear and panic contained. 3. Show gratitude. One of the kindest things we can do is say thank you to those who are doing what they can fight the outbreak. As with my son's university, it doesn't hurt to send the message of thanks to people, organizations that are doing the right thing. Whatever is a tour group that offers refunds for canceling trips, the neighbors who are delivering the spare masks to you, a viral expert who give you straight up information on how to stay safe. When we show gratitude towards others, we let them know that their actions matter, which encourages more of the same kind of behavior, not only to the grateful person, but to others. Creating a cycle of altruism is helpful when we face with a challenge that affects us all, helping to foster trust in each other and care for each other's plight. 4. Remember our common humanity and show compassion. When we are fearful, our first instinct is to cast blame on others or to indulge in prejudice towards groups as we see as responsible. You can say that they'll try to blame Donald Trump for the CDC. Doesn't matter if you like him or not, but people love that finger pointing, the blame game, the witch hunting fetish, etc. I will continue on here. News reports already show that some people of Asian descent in the United States are finding themselves shunned or the victims of racial profiling, simply because the virus appears to have originated in China. Though we might rationally know that no one person or country can be blamed for a viral outbreak, our minds still seek simple explanations. Don't jump the gun. Exactly. Research suggests that we recognize our common humanity and show compassion. We are more likely to pull together and to solve issues that may be complex in nature. You can start by giving yourself some compassion, which can help you become more willing to admit mistakes and take steps to correct them. This is important as a human error can be costly when there is a viral outbreak and we need to work together to learn from our mistakes. Of course, all these guidelines don't supplement the importance of practicing good hygiene. Of course, that includes, my friends, I want to add this: don't use garbage soaps. I don't have to say any names. You can figure that one out. We need to continue to frequently wash our hands and avoid touching our faces so we can lessen the chances of infecting ourselves and others. And of course, But we should also remember our social hygiene. Look for heroes, staying calm ourselves, being grateful, and remember our common humanity. In this way, we can help make the world safer for all of us. And what's funny about it, I think it's a good article, don't get me wrong. But when I hear people say, wash your hands, and I see it smoke like chimneys, I'm like, oh yeah, you're a great role model. But the bottom line is this. We're all on this planet together. Even our communities. We're all in this together, friends. You can't go around running amok and go on a Banshee Street. I got phone calls from South Florida telling me how Mal Havoc they were running around. People are fighting over toilet paper. Come on. That's pathetic. I saw some articles in London saying the same thing, like Mal Havoc. People are throwing stuff on the floor if they don't have it. They just leave. Give me a break, folks. You got to grow up. There's other alternative ways to wipe your rear end or clean it. I could tell you a good little story when I used to do these little workshops, bi-weekly workshops at this gun shop in Pompano Beach. We have a bunch of like-minded people, and we practice those survival techniques, share information with one another. One of my colleagues told me he has old books of telephone books. He keeps them in his garage. The pages you could use as toilet paper. And I brought that out to a shopper over here in New Mexico. And she just opened her eyes. Oh my goodness, like no toilet paper. And I told her about that. Hey, you have these telephone books? Yeah, like I believe so. You can use that. You can use the pages as toilet paper. And she just say, thank you, sir. I made her smile. It's okay to share that love of knowledge to people. If you're gonna play survival of the fittest, it's gonna bite you in the rear end, folks. So this article was originally published by the Greater Good online magazine. So I think it's good stuff. Positive energy is very good, folks. Even during these certain times, you should always sit together, thick and thin. All right. That's it. I thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share us with social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, or something interesting you want to check out, whatever you do, please send your correspondence with decorum. Furthermore, I shall leave all the footnotes pertaining to this matter on my Spreaker page. Once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves, keep on spreading the love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.